you have this long list, this email list of no's. Who's to say that you can't pitch them again?
No, you're exactly right. I think the feedback that comes, and it's very important when I think you're told no, regardless of what it is, you're pitching or you're being told no to, is to get that constructive feedback. I think that's the only way you're going to learn, I think, from that experience. And that's something that we take seriously. It's like, it's a no for right now, but let's learn from it. Let's figure out what we need to do to turn it into a yes.
How much time would you invest in shaping an idea before throwing in the towel? Today, I'm sitting down with Greg Johnson, co-founder and CEO of AquiPor, whose success journey is the epitome of being rejected. From dreaming of a pro basketball career only to be cut at the last minute, Greg has faced rejection at every turn. But instead of giving up, he turned every no into fuel for something bigger. Now, as he pitches for funding to scale his vision, Greg knows firsthand how hard it is to ask for that investment, and how doing the right thing, even when it's the hardest thing, is never the wrong move. Get ready for an inspiring conversation as Greg Johnson shares how he's transformed constant rejection and proved that resilience always pays off on this episode of Navigating No.
Thank you so much for coming on today.
Thanks for having me.
Well, this is awesome because you're a Spokenite, just like me, even though you went to Gonzaga Prep.
Yeah.
You're a blow pop. That's okay. That was a Saxon. We can still be friends. We totally can. And as we were just like riffing back and forth just a few minutes ago, we found out that we know a lot of the same people.
Yeah.
We're kind of the same age group, but we just met, but we've connected several times beforehand. And I thought having you on as a guest would be awesome because you basically are a startup company and you have absolutely heard no's throughout not only your life, but especially as a startup. And I just want the audience to hear that story. And because I think it's very valuable as a startup, anybody in entrepreneurship or crowdfunding or fundraising. And so that's why I wanted to have you on. And I just wanted to say thanks for being here.
Well, thanks for having me. I'm looking forward to the conversation. Yes, I've been told no a lot, especially over the last, say, 8 years. It's been quite the journey for us. With AquiPor, building that company, getting it up and going and trying to grow it. And yes, no, I've become conditioned to deal with no, I would think. So yeah, should be a fun conversation.
Did you always want to get into, were you always an entrepreneur growing up, or was what was kind of your journey to all of a sudden, hey, I'm going to start a business, I'm going to have a partner? Like, what was that journey like?
It was maybe unique, maybe not. I think when I was growing up, I never had in my mind that, I'm going to be a startup CEO one day and, start companies. But there were some things I think early on that maybe inspired some of that or was kind of part of me. When we were younger in the summer, 8, 9, 10, 11 years old, my grandfather, he had some acreage in the Spokane Valley and he would always plant corn. And our summer job was basically to like harvest, pick, and then sell that corn.
Yeah.
Where it was my cousins and I, and I mean, literally we're 10, 11 years old. We'd pick the corn, throw it in the back of the truck, and they would put us, they'd drive us to Trent. And we'd set up shop where it was just us kids
in a parking lot.
Yeah, in a parking lot or the side of the road. And we would sell corn 10 ears for $1 or, a dozen for $1. And that's how we made our summer money. But it was my grandfather, he was amazing because I look back and I'm like, that was kind of profound. Like he had us do the work. Yeah. And then it was like, we'll drive you there and you guys are on your own. Like you figured out, we'll check in on you every couple hours, an adult will come. But I mean, you have like truckers coming by, people coming by, and it's like you're doing these transactions with them.
Shady people.
Yeah, kind of, and it's like someone tend the till, which is like an envelope with cash. And, but we did that every summer and it kind of, I look back on that experience and I think it was in me, it's like, oh yeah, this is how you can make money. Like, provide something that people want and then figure out, how to make money off of it.
Oh my gosh.
So
That is awesome. Did you ever have a problem? Did anybody ever like try to heist your cash? I mean, this is the Valley we're
Nothing like
talking
that.
here.
There was some weird stuff where a guy, I remember my cousin George and I, it was just us two, and we were probably 12 at the time. And a guy came and he like wanted to exchange drugs for corn or something. I mean, I don't totally remember, but yeah, definitely had drugs. And we're like, no, we're
What's
good.
your currency, right?
Yeah.
Right.
I'm like, really? You're going to give us this for
Oh my gosh.
a dozen ears of corn. But so there was weird stuff like that, but we just kind of rolled with it. I mean,
but you were put in that position, right? It was almost like you're being forced to learn on the spot.
Yeah.
And that experience, putting those repetitions in over the summers really kind of started to galvanize who you are and give you a little tougher skin moving forward as a business entrepreneur or a startup, right?
It did. I mean, I look back at that and it was sort of like a formative experience back then. And,
did you ever have the chance to tell your grandfather, like you impacted me? Like, did he ever know that?
No. And I wish. So he passed away when I was 17 in high school. So I never really did, and that's maybe a regret, but I do think about that all the time. I'm like, man, he was profound to do that in a way. It was kind of like he was teaching us lessons beyond just here's your little summer gig, So.
Well, I mean, it's setting you up for success, right?
Yeah.
And even if he's not trying to do that, it's like this little journey that you're learning along the way. I remember my uncle, he lived in Kentucky, and he found out that I had my driver's license and we were driving, and he was like, do you know how to change a tire? And I'm like, no. And he goes, how do you have a license and you don't know how to change a tire? So we pulled off the road right there and he goes, change this tire. And it's like that experience, that putting me on the spot right then with the emotions falling in. It was like, I will always remember that.
That's cool.
I know how to change a tire. And honestly, I think I've changed probably 25 in my entire life since that point.
Yeah.
But just like you, it's like you're thrown into this environment and that's when you learn the most.
It is 100%. I think you cannot value that enough. Is just like going through it and having to figure it out, and I think that, that parlays into like what we're doing, at Aquapor. I mean, when we started the company, we've been at it for a long time. 2016, we started Aquapor. And I remember, I look back, I was so ambitious, but naive. And it's like all the things that have gotten us to this point, it was messy, but you learn along the way. Like there's nothing an MBA class or business school could have taught me
100%
about this mission. So you're exactly right. I mean, you have to be thrown in the fire to really learn and figure things out.
Oh, I love that. We had Demetrius, who plays the new Darth Vader, and he said the same thing. It's like success is forged through fire.
Totally.
Right? It's like when you're put into that environment, it's like you don't know what you're going to become until you go through that.
Yeah.
And that's what makes your skin tough and such. And I love that. When you were when you were selling the corn and you were learning these lessons, did you have aspirations to go to college right after that? You were like, oh, this is what I want to do. I see that making money on my own, because I was at 12, I started selling baseball cards.
Yeah.
And it was like, oh, I can make money. And I see what that does, right? Like the ability and the freedom that you have to make your own money. Is that something that when you started to realize that you were like, oh, I can go more with this, or I can do something else? Like what drove you past that point?
Yeah. I mean, I think that definitely had an impact, and you just realize that, whatever the business is or whatever it is that you're doing, there's a way that you can monetize it, but also you have to provide some value for, the person that's buying your goods or services. And so that's something that stuck with me. But, after that, I guess I didn't think a ton about it. I just kind of knew I would go to high school and then I was going to go to college, and my first love was basketball. So that was really like my focus at the time is, I'm going to get a scholarship, to play somewhere. And then of course, when I'm 12 years old, I'm going to go to the NBA.
Yeah.
Like John Stockton. And, you kind of look up to these people and think that you have a chance to do that. So that really became my focus.
Well, and Spokane is a huge basketball city. I mean, it's like everybody knows the Zags. Everybody knows like Stockton, and it's like it is a huge part of our community.
Yeah.
And so I can see that like that adrenaline rush of like becoming that. So where did you go with that? Did you know you were good at basketball right away?
Yeah, I think so. You know, I started getting really into it like 6th, 7th grade, and I felt like I was pretty good. And then, you know, just wanted to kind of chase it. You know, when I got into high school, I was a good player, and you know, then I got a scholarship to play small college basketball, NAIA at Carroll College. And that was an amazing experience. You know, I look back and I'm like, I should have taken more advantage of that.
You're not alone.
You know what I mean?
No, 100%. People, it's so funny. Like when I look back and played baseball or something like that, and it's like, I wish I could go back and play high school ball and know what I know now. I wish I could go to junior high and play.
Totally.
It's like the experience is just so valuable.
The experience. And I was so same thing. I was so focused on the basketball piece of it and some of the relationships and even business opportunities in college back then, or being able to get in the door, you know, with people that were mentoring me or what have you. But I was totally focused on hoops, and I got good grades. I was like all Frontier Conference, all academic team. So I did the work in the classroom, but I look at that period of time where it was like, no, I am going to go pro no matter what. Like I'm going to chase this dream. And I was able to do that for a very short stint after college. I ended up in Germany, and really that was where, in a sense, like things came crashing down on me. So, you know, I made this team. And
how old are you?
I was probably 22 at the time.
And I'm assuming you don't speak German. You're just all in. Okay.
Which was amazing also. But again, I'm so focused on basketball. I end up getting cut from that team and came home, and I look back at that experience. I'm like, well, I should have just stayed over there and traveled. Like I had these opportunities to do that. But I think that experience really, that was very formative for me too, and leading up to even this point in my life where it's like, you get cut, you don't know what you're going to do now. You come home, and I was devastated, obviously,
100%,
and kind of had to figure things out. But that was the first like big no that came crashing down, where it's like, you know, you could have 2 Americans on the team at the time. They brought in another guard that was American, and I saw the writing on the wall. And then I guess it was the next week, they're like, yep, sorry, you know.
What did that feel like? Like, were you stuck there and you're like, oh, I have no money? Like what was that experience?
It was devastating. I was stuck there. I had a couple bucks, you know, but it was like, I got to get home. And I was just like heartbroken, and you go into a depression. And so it was hard, but I look back, and that was, again, like a formative experience, because it's like, well, now what are you going to do? Like, you got to pick yourself up and figure out what you're going to do next. And so I got busy doing that. But
you got busy. Like, did your parents support you? Were they like, it's okay? Because I mean, experiencing that kind of rejection or being denied on something, I think everybody can relate to that. But that's a hard rejection, because you have your dream moving forward, and it's all of a sudden it's like the door is closed on you.
Yeah.
You're stuck in a foreign country. You don't speak the language. You don't have a lot of money. It's like, you're young enough where you don't understand the consequence or the ripple effect of that. And it's like, how did you? I love that you said like, oh, you just got to make it through it. But like, how did you make it through it? Like, did you have a support system?
Yeah, I did. I had a good support system. And also my mom was like, get a job. Like, and that was good.
Corn.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Let's go plant some more corn. But it was great. I mean, that's what I needed to hear. It's like, you can feel sorry for yourself or whatever, or just like pick yourself back up. And, so I did a bunch of different things when I got back, still trying to figure it out. And then I ended up getting a job in Seattle, which was like an outside sales job for, believe it or not, a sporting goods company. And that experience too, where suddenly I took over a territory. I was a product manager, and I sort of built, I guess, you know, this skill set, a sales skill set that helped a lot. But at about the same, I was a couple years into that job, and this is really where Aquapor, the whole Aquapor thing started. was and even before that, I was doing some things in the real estate world where you're talking to developers and, people that are trying to develop new property. And there's always this sort of like pain point when it came to stormwater management.
Sure.
And so I'd hear that all the time. Well, at the same time, my original co-founder, Kevin, was at WSU, and he was in an environmental engineering class. And they're talking about stormwater pollution and stormwater management. We would always go back and forth with like business ideas. And he was in this class with a kid from China, and the kid's like, well, my family they have partial ownership of this refractory business. So they make bricks. And one of the products is this like micro porous paver. And I'm like, well, there's a market for it. I mean, I'm fast tracking this this whole thing, but I told Kevin, there's a market for it over here. Have these guys send like a sample and let's see what it is. And so they did. We get these samples, pour water on it. And I'm like, dude, there's a market for this now.
Oh,
and I'm still like working the sales job, but I'm like, we should start a company and start distributing this. And
so you have your day job, but you're starting to see, well, I want to go back really quick. And that is that one thing about being an entrepreneur is that if you see a problem that could be solved and you can solve that problem, that's your whole service. That's your whole product, right? And it's like, for you to be able to have that light bulb go off is pretty amazing. So you saw a problem, something that wasn't being serviced because you kept hearing it from all the people in real estate, whether that's the permitting or whether that's the developers or the construction guys. So you're hearing this problem over and over and over, and this light bulb goes off.
Yep.
Okay.
It did. And I'm like, Kevin, have them send samples. So they did. And Kevin and we get together, and I remember it was on a Saturday. We met at River Park Square. I think we were getting lunch at like Twigs or something. He's showing me the product, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is something we could sell over here now. And just being, again, naive and ambitious, we basically told his buddy that was in that class, like, we want to see if this factory will start distributing the material to us. And so we each took separate trips. I mean, fast forward maybe a year, we take separate trips. We go out there, we meet with the factory, and we found ourselves in a distribution agreement, like exclusive for North America. And you had no idea how to do that. Like, you didn't know how to write up a contract.
No.
Or
did you have lawyers, or you're just like, let's do a handshake?
Yeah, it started with a handshake, and then we sort of, made it legal. We did get some counsel on how to do that, but it was like, we have this product now. Now what do we do? And so we would literally go around to every architect and engineering firm locally in Seattle, in Portland, here, and we'd show them the product. It'd be like, what do you think of this? And they're like, oh, it's really cool, but do you have standards on this? And we're like, standards? And so then we started realizing, like, we need to test this out and get what are called ASTM standards on all this. And so we raised a little bit of money. We went out and did that, had white papers written on this, and then we went out and just started selling it. And we were getting a ton of interest. We were on project bids. Like, we started kind of growing that business. The long and short of it is, it was a really bad business model because quality control coming out of China was bad. There were issues, but what we realized was we created this market, and we're like, but the goal was we need to figure out how to make our own material, have our own technology that we can scale here, and so like 2 years into it, that was the realization. And so long story short, we met a material scientist here in town, was working on a concrete technology. We were introduced by someone that was involved in our business, and he started prototyping for us. And we're like, this is incredible. Now we can go off and, start producing this type of material on our own. But that was really how the whole thing started. And
just an idea concept.
Yeah.
Solving a problem. And then not having any path. You had no idea. Like, so what did you do? Were you just like, let's do it. Let's just go. Let's borrow some money. Did you borrow money? Did you have enough saved? Were you using the income from your real estate that you were trying to use, and you were supplementing that? Like, you had two jobs at the same time. Like, how hard was that?
It was very hard. And yes, I was supplementing it with my own income, put some retirement funds into the company, things that honestly I wouldn't advise people to do, but I saw the potential for this, and the mission was so big and it meant so much to us because there was a huge problem that we could solve in the market. And so, yeah, we kind of went all in, and we just learned on the fly. It was like there was no template.
Well, and I think what you had mentioned this about with school, it's like you don't know until you're put into it. Did you ever see the movie Back to School with Rodney Dangerfield?
Yeah,
right. And when he's in the business class and the teacher's talking about like, it's a widget and we sell this, and he goes, well, what are you going to do to pay off these guys? And what are you going to do to sell off this and the permit? And he's like, and he goes, that's not real life.
Yeah.
That is not real life. Real life is when you don't have the money and you're like trying to meet people and you're like, oh, I'm going to go to China and I'm going to meet Fred.
Yeah.
And you're like, you don't know Fred. You don't know if he's a real person. You have no clue.
Yeah.
So you took an absolute chance. You borrowed, you took this risk. How frightening was that? And did it help to have a partner like that? You guys could, we can do this together.
Yeah, it helped a ton. I mean, this would have been almost impossible, I think, to do as a solo entrepreneur. That partnership helped a ton, and we just both had that vision, and sort of we kept the excitement around it because we were, even with this first product, we were going around and we weren't being told no necessarily. It was like, yes, but so figure these things out. And so that kept us going. But then when we started bringing product in and the product was not up to, standards.
This is the quality that you were talking about.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
could you see it right away? Like all of a sudden it arrived. You're like, hey, this is sawdust. It's not real concrete.
cracked material, cracked product, wrong colors, all these things. And then we're like, oh my goodness, what do we do? I mean, we're bringing in delivery for actual projects.
Mm-hmm.
And that was extremely scary because it's like, this is not the business. Like, how do we deal with that? And
were there contracts already made? Like people had purchased this and it was coming in and you had to deliver?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. And I guess we hedged by not getting into, after like the second time this happened, there were other opportunities to get onto projects, and we're like, nope, pump the brakes.
Ooh.
We need to figure this out. And so around that same time, that's when we were introduced to our inventor, who invented our technology to this day, Aquapors.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, it was funny because we brought him the product we were distributing, and he looked at it and he's like, well, long term, this is going to fail because of this, and this.
Oh, that's awesome. Okay.
And so that was amazing. And then he started prototyping for us, and we were like, okay,
you brought in an expert.
Yes.
And I'm sure that you have to relinquish, whether that is like funds or ownership of the company. Like that's hard. Like as an entrepreneur myself, it's like, if I want to scale and I want to bring people in, I want them to believe in the product. I want them to believe in my mission, my brand, my image. And it's like, what are you going to give up for that? Was that hard?
It was. But we made it work. Where the other piece of it was we had investors that came into that earlier company. And so
before the quality.
Yeah.
Control. Okay.
And so the main thing for me was we got to keep everyone whole, and
happy.
Yeah. Whole and happy. And we have this new technology or this new opportunity, but we're going to roll everyone into the new company that we form, which was Aquapor.
Uh-huh. And
then, yes, we'll divvy out equity, accordingly for our inventor. And it came together, and it was, based on where we're at today, I think it was a match made in heaven just to get, to that point. And, a lot of lessons learned along the way.
Well, and your lessons learned, but I love that you were able to push pause and you had to deliver the no.
Yeah.
Right. That's hard too, just to deliver that no to your investors and to the companies that pre-purchase the product. It's like, we cannot fulfill this order because we don't want to tarnish our brand, our image, right? And it's like, was that hard?
So hard. There was an opportunity in New York. I remember it was the New York Big Wheel, and we didn't have the contract, but we were in the running, and it would have been like a $500,000 contract. And it was like, we can't do it. Like we had that conversation of like, should we just try to move heaven and earth, go back to China, talk to these guys, say, hey, this is,
fake it till you make it.
Yeah. $500,000 contract. You have to make sure, quality control is up to par. And that sounds easy to do, but we saw how that process was going with the factory.
Sure.
So we kind of made the decision like, nope, we're going to close down shop and start anew. And that was one of the toughest decisions.
Oh yeah. You see the money right there and you see, okay, that's going to take us to the next step and scale us. And it's like, it also proves to yourself that you have a product that's worthy and valuable, right? That people want, that you're delivering some kind of problem solution, right? And it's like, that would be horrible.
It was tough.
Were you and your partner, were you just like, how did that conversation go?
It was a tough conversation because we were both on the same page, but we'd go back and forth too, where it was like, yeah, we should do it. We should just try to do it. And then we'll figure it out,
Sure.
Once we deliver this project. And if that money comes in and we're paid on the contract, then we can halt everything and go into developing our own technology. And that buys us enough runway. But then we're like, the liability is just too high.
Yeah.
And if we stub our toe, it's like, there's no coming back from that. And so we just made the decision like,
well, I think that's awesome because that you did, I think that tells a lot about who you are and your partner are and the company itself. It's like, you did the right thing. Right. And that sometimes doing the right thing hurts. And sometimes it's the hardest thing to do. But I'm assuming because of that decision, now you are where you are.
Yes.
Even though it hurt at that point and it sucked and you saw the money and did you ever do this? Like you picture the money in your mind, you're like, oh, I can go buy this, I can do this. And it's like that gets swept away right away.
Totally. And now, I mean, I look at it as like, if we had a $500,000 contract, which we hope to have a lot of here as we move forward, it's like, I look back at that decision. I'm like, wow, that was tough.
Yeah.
But you're right. It was the right decision to make. And it put us in position to stay whole, to not get caught up in liability. Cause I know the product, it would have worked for a little while, but knowing what we know now about that product and technology, 2 years down the road, it wouldn't have been functioning. And so it's like, in hindsight, it was an easy decision, but at the time,
it's still painful.
Yeah.
Well, I guess that brings me to my next question, because I want you to explain what the problem was. Like, what is Aquapor? Like, what is it? What is the actual product? And I know we have it here in front of us, but it's like, can you kind of explain to us, especially to our listeners who aren't seeing, but it's like, can you explain that? Here's this idea, and I know that it has this potential, and now we got to take it. So can you say that?
Definitely. So Aquapor, our base technology, it is a metal phosphate, porous and permeable concrete technology. So it's a whole new technology to make concrete that is permeable, so water can go through it. And it's got a porous matrix so that, I guess the easiest way to explain it, it's like a filter. So stormwater, you get a bunch of rain, in a city, and you have all this stormwater run down the sidewalk or the gutter. It will take on that stormwater. So that stormwater will infiltrate through the product, but it will filter out dust, debris, particulate matter right on the surface. And so our technology is really a way for cities to manage stormwater on site, so that this
versus that water going to
storm drains.
Okay.
And overflowing. A lot of cities have combined sewer systems where stormwater, wastewater, and sewage is all managed in the same system.
Sure.
And the problem is, in these cities, now that we're getting, more extreme rain events, those systems will get overwhelmed. And when that happens, all of that, they're designed to discharge all of that pollution into a river, a lake, a stream, Santa Monica Bay, clean water bodies. And so what we're doing is we're just replacing traditional paved surfaces with our material, and we're solving that problem. We're just getting water back into the ground.
Well, and I'm assuming also that you're hitting two other things. You are actually saving governments and cities and communities money up front because they don't have to clean it out a second time or even farther filtrate it, right?
Yeah.
And then also it's like you're just making our environment safer too.
Yeah.
Right. So that's a 2-for-1 as well.
Yep. Those are the two big ones. And, you'd be amazed though at how hard it is to get this implemented in cities. They want to do it, but there's so much path dependency amongst decision makers, especially in, well, not just with municipal infrastructure, but the construction industry in general, because they've done things a certain way for so long. And so,
oh yeah,
to us, this is a no-brainer. This should be everywhere. But, to cities, it's like, well, it's new. So, how do we implement this? And is this going to be more expensive than traditional paved surfaces and all these things? And so it's getting them kind of attuned to, this is going to be a little more expensive than normal pavement, up front. But the savings that you hit on, by managing stormwater, keeping pollution out of these combined systems, and then downsizing gray infrastructure, this ends up being like a huge cost saver for cities.
Well, and I'm assuming their bottom line is what they're worried about, right? Saving money, right? And then also like what the return on investment is down the future. Like, is that for 50 cents on every dollar or whatever? And it's like, you're having to pitch that to these people or to the cities or to the permitting groups or the developers. Like, what is it that you believe in this product? You know what it is. It's a no-brainer, but how do you prove to someone and how do you prove to investors? Like, do you have a pitch? Is that a hard, like, reject? Do you get rejected by that? Obviously the cities say no sometimes, right? And so it's like, they're slowly getting on board, but what did that feel like to be rejected?
Well, not good. I mean, because you have a solution for them, and we've gotten used to, being told no because this is a more expensive product out of the gates. But what we're figuring out is, and we have models to show, like if you replace a mile of sidewalk in LA County with this material, like we have numbers that we can show them.
Sure.
Here's how much stormwater you're going to get back in the ground. Now you can put an economic value on that because you're not importing water from 300 miles away. You don't have to treat it, at the wastewater treatment plant. We have a number of metrics we can show them, but you still get told no because it's new. And everyone's like, prove it. But no one wants to raise their hand, at least in the early going, to be like, all right, we'll be your pilot guinea pig.
So it's a chicken egg kind of.
Yeah.
Okay.
Totally. And we've been able to navigate that,
Nice choice of words.
Yeah. Exactly.
Okay.
Because when they tell us no, it's kind of like, well, this is just something that we'll prove on our own. We will find that developer or that city, maybe a smaller city that wants to pilot this because they have such an acute need that, we'll do something with the technology, and just finding those early champions. That's what all the no's have led to is, well, we'll just find the people that want to do it.
Well, I think that hits on any industry too. Like as an entrepreneur, if you're an author, a self-published author, or if you're like me as a speaker, it's like it only takes one person to believe in you and to hear your content, to see your product, and to actually know that it's memorable. You're creating some kind of emotional attachment to it. It's valuable, right? Like you are providing X and you're saving them Y, and then you're referable, right? And that referable is that this city jumped on, you should jump on too. And it 100%. Sounds like you're on that memorable, valuable, and referable spot right now. And how hard is it? Are you just like focusing in on, we're in Spokane, but it's like, are you focusing in on Washington State? Or are you just like, you've mentioned LA, like, are you reaching out to different communities? Like, what are you doing?
A little of both. And what's interesting is we haven't really been marketing the product outside of, we're getting a lot of interest because we have a crowdfund live right now. So that's an online investment offering basically. And so we market the raise online and people are finding out about the product through that.
Oh,
We're to the point right now where we're ready to scale up into production, but we didn't want to start marketing anything until we knew we could supply, because just based on the interest we're getting from people right now without marketing, we're like, if we have this much demand and we go to market too soon without being able to supply, it would be that'd be a very tough hurdle.
You're delivering no's to everybody else. And I mean, it's the same thing with it. If you cannot provide the product, you're going to tarnish yourself too.
That's
so
it.
Okay. So I see you holding back for that reason.
Yeah.
Okay.
But at the same time, we're being very selective about the type of projects we want to take on initially. And yes, there are a couple in Spokane, but it seems like the big need right now, just based on inquiries and interest, LA, Austin, Texas, even like Phoenix, Arizona. So these areas where they have these really acute water issues.
Sure.
Yeah. Yep. And so we're trying to be really strategic about what projects we take on, right out of the gates.
How hard is it to add this to, you had mentioned earlier about adding this to concrete mix now, and that is a loop, let's call it a loophole or a wraparound, like where you can kind of get in and not cut corners, but like you can just add it. Like, can you explain that? Like, how did you come up with that idea?
Yeah. I mean, I guess it was just us taking feedback from the market and seeing that. So our base technology, it's incredible. All right. We think it's like, it will change the world. But the problem with it is, in terms of how the industry views it, you have to get new standards. We would have to develop our own standards for this new technology, which would have taken years and a lot of money to do. And to make it, there's a couple extra steps in the process. So what we realized, though, was you can take our binder material and process it as an aggregate or an additive that goes into normal concrete, and you get all the benefits of the porosity, the permeability. But now, since it's going into normal concrete mixes, you already have standards. So it's ASTM approved, and the concrete manufacturers don't have to change anything about their process. They just throw our aggregate in their mix, and then you're getting those benefits. And so that really came from us just getting feedback as we were developing the technology and seeing like, okay, we need to make a subtle pivot.
I love that. Yeah.
And turn this into something that can just integrate seamlessly into what the industry is already doing. Instead of going out and trying to compete with everyone right off the bat, these huge companies and the industry at large is like, let's just give them something that improves their toolkit.
So it's almost like you're piggybacking on an original product that doesn't need fixing, but could become better.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yes.
I love that.
Yes.
So I grew up doing construction here in Spokane, and I remember many days mixing concrete before the cement trucks would come in or anything like that. And it was like, you take the lime, you take the gravel, you take the sand, and it's like you mix it and it's just gross and dusty. And I still miss those days.
Yeah.
But it's like, is this something that you then just add that to the mix too, if you're just doing it, if you're mixing your own concrete?
Yep. Yeah,
okay.
Absolutely. So we would have a prescribed mix design for a producer.
Sure.
And then we could just deliver sacks of our material. And here's the mix design. Use 10% of our stuff by weight of the total aggregate, or 25%. There's different mix designs do different things in the finished concrete.
Interesting.
And so we would just give that producer, a prescribed
ratio of some kind. I mean, and the same thing when you're actually mixing the concrete, it's like 2 scoops to this, to 3 to that. And right. So it would just be that one more thing. It reminds me of like the piggybacking and adding the value. And I think I mentioned this before we came on, is that it's like, it reminds me of, I'm going to plug Chevron, but it's like Chevron with Techron.
Yes.
Right? And it's just that extra added value. It is a premium, but to the consumer, it's like, wow, I am getting something more. And do you really see the results right away? Maybe not, but it's like down the line, it's better for your engine.
Yes.
You're not smelling it when you're plugging it in. So you're adding value to the existing product that didn't need fixing, but it needs to be better. I love that.
100%. And that's, I think with that pivot, that's really where we're taking this. It does some other things in concrete that are really interesting. So you can take all the stormwater, permeability, all those things to the side, which is a huge added benefit, right? But what's interesting is our material actually, we're finding it's making concrete stronger earlier. And we think it has a lot to do with the pozzolanic nature.
I love when you talk like that.
Of our material. Well, so a pozzolan, like think of Roman concrete, the Colosseum, the Pantheon.
And they couldn't figure out why they're still standing versus my old house. Right?
They were using natural pozzolans, and what they're using was volcanic ash. And so there's something that happens, with that material when it binds with normal cement.
Wow.
And it basically, it forms new bonds. Ours is doing the same thing. And so that's like an unanticipated benefit. We didn't even know until we started testing it and we started getting these strength numbers, and we're like, whoa, we're just by adding our stuff, now we're stronger than normal concrete. And so for the industry, that's a huge
100%
added benefit.
Yeah.
So,
well, you don't have to keep rebuilding the sidewalks. You don't have to keep doing the pavement. And I mean, that there's plenty of cracks in our new development, right? 100%.
Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, it's, I think it's just us being attuned to the technology, but the industry and what the industry wants. And
who is the industry? Is it municipalities? Is it like, what is it?
I think municipalities would be really the end user. But when we say industry, I'm thinking more like the contractors, the guys that are making the concrete. And they're very intertwined, obviously, with the end user. So it's like if you have a stronger material that, by the way, manages stormwater and has all these other benefits, and it can be made easily so that you can make this at scale.
Yeah.
I think that's a big deal. And that's where we've been trying to get to for literally 8 years. And we're finally to that point. So
when you do pitch it to the industry, right, and people are saying, I see it, but somebody else has to go first. It's like, what is your reply to that? Is it like you go back to the drawing board and then you try to make it better because the no is not just right now until you prove yourself? Like, how does that feel? And do you have a schedule in mind? You're like, this is going to take off. This is where the traction is literally going to hit the pavement. No pun intended.
Yeah. I think you bring up a really good point because we get those no's a lot. And I think one thing that we've gotten better at is when you hear a no is figure out why. Obviously, why is it no? And then go back to the drawing board, take that feedback and get it to a point where maybe you answer their question or you alleviate that concern.
Yeah.
And go back to them later, as you refine, whether it's the technology or your approach or whatever. And so, yes, we definitely take that feedback to make this better and make our pitch, whether it's to concrete producers or cities, better so that we can answer and alleviate some of their concerns. And kind of same thing, when we're out raising money, you get told no a lot.
Yeah.
Same type of thing is like, why is that? Take that feedback, hone your pitch, hone your presentation, and try to answer those questions.
Was that difficult to ask for money? Because I mean, it's hard, like as a fundraiser sometimes, like if I'm on a board and it's like, you're like, hey, do you want to, that's a hard phone call to have. That's a hard one-on-one conversation to have. So what is it like to ask for $1 million? Like how hard is that?
It is hard. I hate it. I've never gotten used to raising money. I mean, some people say, oh yeah, it's just part of and it's part of the deal, but I don't like fundraising. I never have. It's difficult. I also got to the point where, especially when you're pitching like institutional type investors, venture funds, and these more sophisticated investors who always say no, it got to the point also for me where it's like every no that I got, I'm keeping that receipt because I'm like, I know what we have.
Yeah.
And I know, where this is going to go. And so it's like, I keep all those receipts. I swear to God, every email that I've gotten that's like, no, we're going to pass. Those are saved. And that's part of me.
That's an inspiration within you, right?
It is. It's kind of the chip on the shoulder that is motivating to me. But yeah, I don't know where I'm going with that other than, no, I don't enjoy raising money. It's always hard, but it is also necessary to the process and
the process. Well, and I want to say that it's like you're putting in those repetitions right now. It's like
100%.
You are learning how to navigate those no's. You're going back to the drawing board. You're making your product, your service better, your pitch better.
Yep.
And this is for anything. If I apply for a job and I'm told no, I can't take it personally. It's like, what is the constructive criticism? And a lot of people don't ask that. Yeah. And you're lucky if you have the guts to ask, and if the person's willing to tell you, you know what, I didn't like the way that you dressed. You just didn't have the skill set to be able to get that constructive criticism back and then take it. And what you do with it only makes you stronger. Totally. It really does, because it's just the no right now. It's like there will be eventually a yes. And I love that you keep track of everybody because it's like, it does. Well, not only because it inspires you to keep moving forward. And it's like all those notes, you're just lighting my fire. Yeah. Like when I'm told no, I turn it to on. I'm like, I'm going to prove to you you're wrong. I'm right. And I will prove to the world that I can do it. But at the same time, and I think that I think you would do this, that you have this long list, this email list of no's. Who's to say that you can't pitch them again? Yeah. Because it's just future business and the ability ahead of time. Right?
Exactly. Yep. And I'll do that. I'll ping people back, once we hit a certain milestone, and you keep them on your list. But no, you're exactly right. I think the feedback that comes, it's very important when I think you're told no, regardless of what it is, you're pitching or you're being told no to, is to get that constructive feedback. I think that's the only way you're going to learn, I think, from that experience. And that's something that we take seriously. It's like, it's a no for right now, but let's learn from it. Let's figure out what we need to do to turn it into a yes.
Love that. And you're growing not only as an individual, but as a partnership and as a startup.
Totally.
Right. And it's like, you're just becoming more valuable and being able to do that. And I love that. I think you hit on a couple of hard no's, whether that was your basketball or whether that's your fundraising or being told no with the $500,000 from your future contract. But if there was one thing that you would want to tell your past self or audience today, like to keep moving forward when you are told no, what would that one thing be?
That's a great question. This will sound maybe not glib, but this may, I don't know how this will come off, but the key to happiness, if I could have told my 22-year-old self this, the key to happiness is to lower your expectations. And that doesn't mean don't shoot for the moon and the stars. It's just shoot for the stars, but have realistic expectations. And there's a lady, Gabrielle Oettingen, and she talks about a process she calls WHOOP. Have your wish, know what the obstacle is going to be. Or how does it go? Wish, obstacle, outcome. So what, if you overcome these obstacles, will the outcome be? And then the P is for plan. So plan for, you have this huge dream. You're going to be told no. You're going to run into all these roadblocks, all these obstacles. Plan for those things. And so I think that would be my advice to my younger self, is set your expectations lower. And what that will do is keep you focused, I think, on the process.
Focused, yeah.
And I know people might think like, oh no, don't set your expectations lower, like shoot for the moon. Well, you should do that, but you should understand, like along the way, you're going to stub your toe a lot. Yeah. And if you just can stay on the path and on the journey. So I don't think something like that.
I didn't think that sounded glib at all, but I think it's like, I think that is the overall arc of the whole podcast too. It's like the journey is the experience,
It
right?
is.
And it's what makes you grow, and it's what makes you successful, because success is going to mean something different to every one of us. And for you to get there, you are going to be told no. And I just, that hits home with me, because if I could tell the younger generations, like, it's just have your goal, but just keep grinding.
Yes.
Because as long as you're still falling forward, you're making headway.
Yep.
And you're going to have to be able to pivot and adapt at any time. And as long as, like, what's the outcome going to be? And if you're prepared, it's just the journey, and it just makes you who you are.
It is.
Because you are who you are because of all of those rejections you've heard.
Yeah. And then that's the thing. If you set your expectations super high and you get knocked off the horse the first time and don't get back up, that's where you fail.
Yes.
Right. When you're told no, and it seems like you have all these little failures, if you just pick yourself up, learn from it, and keep going, you're not failing. It's like you're learning along the way, and you're growing.
Oh, I love that.
100%.
Well, where can people find out more about Aquapor and more about you and where this is going? Because it's like you're providing something for the future for my kids, your kids. Like, where can people find you?
Yes. Aquapor.com. That's our website. We have a crowdfund live right now. It's an equity crowdfunding campaign where people can actually invest in our current round. And that is at startengine.com/Aquapor. And we're on Instagram at Aquapor Tech, Facebook at Aquapor Tech, TikTok, X. We're on all the social media platforms. LinkedIn. Yeah. So all the things.
And if people are really interested in, like, wow, this idea might work for my municipality, with my group, with my city, like, can they reach out to you directly via those platforms?
Yes, I would love that. And you can email us, anything like that. Just send an email to info@aquapor.com. We get a lot of those, and we love it. It's, you have someone in Ohio, for example, that says, I can get this in front of city council. Are you guys ready to expand into Ohio? And it's like, not quite yet, but please do, get the word out. And so we are, we're very interested in all those opportunities.
Well, and you never know if you're going to meet that one person. That's going to be the person with the chicken and egg, right?
Exactly.
And so you've got to stay open to it. Well, I love that. I really, really appreciate your time today. I love that you have explained this product, and I just wish you the best. And I want everybody else, we'll plug all of your sites on so that people can find out and do the crowdfunding. But I just wish you the best of luck. And I love that you went to Gonzaga Prep, and I was a Ferris Saxon. So we'll still be friends.
Rivals. Yeah, we can still be friends.
I love it. Well,
Blue,
thank you so much.
Thank you. This was fun.
Awesome.
Really appreciate it.
Well, I will have you back on another day, because I want to know what the goal or what the end result's going to be, because I want to see you out there, man.
Let's do it.
Thank you so much for jumping on.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening to Navigating No. If this episode brings you value, or you know someone who could benefit from it, the best way to support the show is by sharing and subscribing. It's completely free and helps us reach more people. And if you have any questions, feedback, or guests you'd like me to interview, drop a comment while you're there. I'd love to hear from you. And most importantly, thank you for tuning in. And let's continue sharing optimism and positivity.